A poor waitress helped a janitor fix a printer, then saw his face on the CEO wall of fame. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's dive into the story. Emma walked back to the front of the cafe, her hands trembling slightly as she wiped down a table. Her mind was still spinning from the revelation about Mark. The man she had spent the last half hour thinking of as just another janitor, just a regular guy trying to make ends meet, was actually Mark Williams, the CEO of one of the largest tech companies in the country. She had no idea how to feel about it. Part of her was embarrassed by her assumptions, but another part of her couldn't help but admire how humble and grounded he was. It was refreshing, really, considering the wealth and power he must possess. Emma spent the next few days in a daze. Mark's words had been replaying in her mind over and over. She could hardly concentrate on her work, her thoughts constantly drifting back to that moment when he had offered her the chance to change her life. It was everything she had ever dreamed of, a chance to finally open her own art studio, to make something of herself. But the fear kept creeping in. Was this too good to be true? Did she really deserve this kind of opportunity? Emma spent hours walking the city streets, trying to clear her mind. She passed art galleries, quiet cafes, and street vendors, but nothing could shake the unease building inside her. She was a waitress, not someone who belonged in the world of high-powered CEOs and tech millionaires. What would Mark want with someone like her? It wasn't until she stopped in front of a small park, sitting on one of the benches that lined the path, that she realized something important. This was her chance. A small, quiet voice inside her whispered, "You have to take it. This is what you've always wanted." She thought back to how Mark had spoken about her art, how he had believed in her even when she hadn't believed in herself. He had seen something in her that no one else had, and that thought made her feel a little less afraid. After another restless night of tossing and turning, Emma made up her mind. She was going to call him. She picked up her phone, staring at the screen for a long moment. She hesitated, her fingers hovering over the screen. But then she remembered his words. No pressure. He hadn't forced her into anything. He hadn't expected anything from her. It was a gift, not a demand. She took a deep breath and dialed his number. The phone rang twice before Mark picked up. "Hello, Emma," he said, his voice warm and familiar. "Hi, Mark," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. "I've thought about your offer, and She paused, taking a deep breath. "I'd like to take you up on it." There was a long pause on the other end, and for a second, Emma worried she had said the wrong thing. But then Mark spoke, his voice full of approval. "I'm glad to hear that, Emma. I think you're going to do great things. Let's set up a meeting." Emma agreed, and they arranged to meet at his office the next morning. As she prepared for the meeting, she couldn't shake the butterflies in her stomach. She felt nervous, unsure of what to expect. Would she really be able to make this leap? She had been so used to small, quiet dreams that were within reach but never fully realized. But now, Mark was offering her something bigger. It felt surreal, like something out of a movie. When she arrived at Mark's office, she was greeted by a receptionist who led her into a sleek, modern conference room. The walls were lined with large windows that overlooked the city, and the polished wooden table gleamed under the bright lights. Mark was already there, waiting for her. He stood up as she entered, offering her a warm smile. "It's good to see you again, Emma," he said. Emma smiled back, feeling a strange mix of nerves and excitement. "Thank you for meeting with me," she said as she sat down. Mark nodded, his expression serious but kind. "I want you to know that I'm not offering you this opportunity out of pity. I genuinely believe you have the talent to make something great. You've got a vision, and I want to help bring it to life." Emma felt her heart race as he spoke. This was it. This was the moment where everything could change. "I know it's a lot to take in," Mark continued, "but I want you to feel comfortable with the decision. If you're ready, we can start working on a business plan together, figure out how we can make your dream a reality." Emma swallowed hard. She could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on her, but at the same time, there was a sense of clarity. She had been given a chance to change her life. All she had to do was take it. "I'm ready," she said, her voice steady now. "I'm ready to do this." Mark's face lit up with a smile. Great. Let's get started. Over the next few weeks, Emma worked closely with Mark and his team. They helped her map out a plan for the art studio she had always dreamed of. They discussed funding, location, and how to attract the right clients. It wasn't easy, and there were many late nights spent working through the details, but Emma felt a sense of purpose she had never experienced before. She was finally taking control of her future. One day, as Emma walked into Mark's office for one of their regular meetings, she saw something that made her pause. On the wall behind Mark's desk was a framed picture of a new project he was involved in, a community outreach program for young artists. Emma didn't know why, but seeing that picture made her feel like she was a part of something bigger than herself. Mark noticed her looking at it and smiled. "We've been working on this project for a while now," he said. "It's something I'm really passionate about, giving young artists the resources they need to succeed. And I think it's something that will align perfectly with your vision." Emma looked at him, her heart swelling with gratitude. "I can't believe all of this is happening," she said quietly. Mark turned to her, his expression sincere. "I believed in you from the moment we met, Emma. You've got a lot to offer, and I'm glad I could help you see that." Emma smiled, feeling the weight of her doubts lift. For the first time in a long while, she truly believed that her dreams were within reach. And it was all because of a simple act of kindness from a man who had seen her for who she really was. The days that followed were a blur for Emma. With Mark's offer still fresh in her mind, she threw herself into the planning and preparation for her new art studio, a dream she never thought would come true. There were meetings to attend, documents to sign, and countless details to figure out. But through it all, Mark was there, guiding her, supporting her, and offering advice when needed. His encouragement was a constant source of reassurance. Yet, despite all the progress, there was a nagging feeling that Emma couldn't shake. She had spent so much time doubting her abilities in the past, and now that everything was falling into place, she couldn't help but wonder if she was truly ready for the life that awaited her. Could she handle the responsibility of running her own business? Was she cut out for a life of success and stability? These questions haunted her, especially when she was alone, staring at the empty walls of her new studio space. But every time she met with Mark, she felt a little more confident. He never doubted her for a second. He saw something in her that she had never seen in herself, a drive, a passion, and a unique talent that could shape the future of her art. One evening, as Emma sat in her small apartment, working on a design for the studio, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Mark. "How's everything going? I know you've been busy, but I wanted to make sure you're doing okay." She smiled at the message, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "Thanks for checking in," she typed back. "I'm doing okay, just a little overwhelmed. There's so much to do." Mark's reply came quickly. "It's normal to feel that way. But remember, you're not alone in this. We're building something great together." His words were simple, but they gave her a sense of comfort. It wasn't just about the business. It was about knowing that someone believed in her, truly believed in her, in a way no one else had. The next day, Emma met with Mark at his office to discuss some final details about the studio. He greeted her with a smile and led her to a conference room where they could go over everything. "So, what's on your mind?" Mark asked as they sat down. Emma hesitated for a moment, then spoke up. "I guess I just keep wondering if I'm ready for all of this. I've never had something this big to focus on, and I'm scared I'll mess it up." Mark leaned forward, his expression serious. "Emma, you are more than ready for this. You have the heart, the vision, and the determination to make it work. And I'll be right here with you every step of the way." Emma's heart swelled at his words. She could see how much he believed in her, and it made her feel like maybe, just maybe, she could do this. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Emma signed the lease for the space, hired a small team, and began the process of transforming the empty building into the art studio she had always dreamed of. She worked tirelessly, sometimes late into the night, making sure every detail was perfect. Mark continued to support her, checking in regularly, offering advice, and even helping with some of the setup. Emma was overwhelmed, but she was also excited. It felt like the beginning of something truly special. Then, one afternoon, as she was working in the studio, Mark called. "Hey, Emma," he said when she answered the phone. "I've been thinking about our community outreach project. How would you feel about being involved? It could be a great way to give back and help young artists who are just starting out." Emma smiled, the idea sparking something deep inside her. "I think that sounds amazing," she said. I've always wanted to help others who are struggling with their art. I think it would be the perfect way to use this space. I knew you'd feel that way, Mark replied, his voice warm. Let's set up a meeting to discuss the details. I want you to be a big part of this. Emma felt a sense of fulfillment she hadn't known she was missing. Not only was she on the verge of achieving her own dreams, but she was also going to help others achieve theirs. It felt like everything was coming together in ways she had never imagined. A few weeks later, Emma stood in her new studio, looking around at the walls adorned with her art and the bustling energy of the space she had built from scratch. It was beautiful, and it was hers. As she walked toward the back of the room, she paused for a moment, taking it all in. Mark had been right all along. She was ready, and now, with the support of the people who truly cared about her, she was going to make her mark in the world. Emma's phone buzzed again. It was Mark. The community project is ready to go. Are you ready to make a difference? She smiled to herself and typed back. More than ready. The message felt like a promise, a reminder that the journey she had started with a simple act of kindness was only just beginning. She had come so far, and there was no turning back now. Emma had found her place, her purpose, and her family in ways she had never expected. And she was ready to take on the world, one brushstroke at a time. The first month in her new studio felt like a whirlwind for Emma. Every day brought new challenges and new accomplishments. She had made the leap, and now, she was fully immersed in the life she had always dreamed of. The walls of the art studio were covered with vibrant pieces of her own work, and the space was beginning to take on the feel of a community. Mark's encouragement had turned her vision into reality, and now the studio was open to young artists, giving them a place to create and thrive. Mark's community outreach project had taken off as well. He had helped secure the funding for workshops and mentoring sessions, and Emma was actively involved in guiding the artists who came through the doors. The studio was becoming a hub of creativity, and it was all thanks to Mark's belief in her. Despite the progress, there were still moments when doubt crept in. Emma had worked hard to get to this point, but sometimes, when she was alone in the studio, she questioned whether she truly belonged here. Her mind would race with thoughts of failure, of wondering if she was really capable of running a successful business. But every time she faced these doubts, she would think back to the first time Mark had believed in her, when he saw something in her that she had never seen in herself. It was a reminder that she wasn't alone in this journey. One afternoon, as Emma sat at her desk, she noticed Mark walking through the door, his usual confident stride unmistakable. He had a smile on his face, and Emma couldn't help but feel a sense of warmth spread through her chest. It was the first time she had seen him in a few days. "How's everything going?" Mark asked, his voice gentle, yet full of genuine interest. Emma smiled back at him. "Busy but good," she said. "I can't believe how quickly this has all come together." Mark took a seat across from her, his eyes scanning the studio, taking in the energy of the space. "It looks amazing," he said, his voice filled with pride. "You've done something special here, Emma." Emma's heart swelled at his words. "I couldn't have done it without you," she said softly. "You gave me the chance to make this happen. I can't thank you enough." Mark leaned back in his chair, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. "You did the work," he said. "I just gave you the push you needed." Emma nodded, but the weight of what he said stuck with her. She had done the work, yes, but she had never imagined that this was the life she could have, this life of independence and purpose. Mark's words had been a turning point, but it was her own hard work and determination that had made it all come together. As they sat there, talking about upcoming events at the studio and planning for future projects, Emma couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude toward Mark. He had believed in her from the start, and now, he was helping her build something that would last. But more than that, Mark had shown her the value of kindness, of seeing the potential in others and helping them realize it. She had learned so much from him, not just about business but about life. In the weeks that followed, Emma found herself growing more comfortable in her role. She was still working hard, still learning, but the uncertainty that had once consumed her was beginning to fade. She had learned to trust herself, to believe that she was capable of achieving great things. And as the studio continued to grow, so did her confidence. One evening, as Emma was locking up the studio for the night, Mark stopped by again. "I've been thinking," he said, a twinkle in his eye. "I know this is your dream, but what do you think about expanding the studio? Maybe we can open another location in a few months." Emma's heart skipped a beat at the thought. Another location? She repeated, her voice filled with excitement. I never imagined that could be possible. Mark smiled. I believe it can be. You've proven that you can make this work, and I think it's time to take it to the next level. What do you say? Emma's mind raced with possibilities. This was it. The opportunity she had been waiting for. She had built something incredible here, and now, with Mark's support, it could grow even bigger. Let's do it, she said, her voice filled with determination. Let's expand. Over the next several months, the plans for the new location came together quickly. Emma and Mark worked side by side, putting together a business strategy, finding the perfect space, and building the foundations for the new studio. It wasn't always easy. There were challenges, setbacks, and moments of doubt. But Emma knew she wasn't alone. She had Mark by her side, just as he had been since the very beginning. When the new studio finally opened its doors, Emma couldn't help but feel overwhelmed with emotion. The journey had been long and difficult, but it had all led to this moment. The moment when her dreams were no longer just dreams, but a reality. As she looked around at the bustling new studio, filled with artists and students, she realized just how far she had come. She wasn't just running a business. She was building a community, a place where people could come together to create and thrive. And it was all thanks to the kindness of one man who had believed in her when she could barely believe in herself. As the months went by, Emma's art studio flourished. The new location was bustling with energy, filled with young, talented artists who came to learn, create, and share their passion for art. The space had transformed from a simple idea into something much bigger, something Emma had never thought possible. With the support of Mark and the community they had built, she was finally living her dream. But even as the studio grew, Emma couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. She had worked so hard to get here, but sometimes she still wondered if she was truly deserving of everything she had. She had come from nothing, just a waitress in a small cafe, and now she was running 2 successful studios, helping others find their creative paths. It seemed surreal. One late afternoon, as Emma sat in her office, reviewing plans for an upcoming event, she received a call from Mark. His voice sounded a little more serious than usual. Hey, Emma, he began. I need to talk to you about something important. Emma straightened up in her chair, sensing the shift in his tone. Sure, what's going on? There's a project I've been working on, Mark said, his voice low. It's about expanding the community outreach initiative, and I think it could be a great opportunity for you. But it requires a lot of resources, and it might be more than we're prepared for at this moment. Emma's mind immediately raced. What kind of project are you talking about? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. It's an initiative to bring art education to underprivileged neighborhoods, Mark explained. We would partner with local schools, offer free workshops, and create spaces for young people to explore their creativity. I've already secured some funding, but it's going to require a lot of effort. I want you to be involved. Emma's heart skipped a beat. This sounded like everything she had ever wanted, to give back, to provide opportunities for young artists who might not have the same advantages she had. But there was a part of her that hesitated. I'm honored that you would think of me for this, she said slowly. But do you really think I'm ready for something like this? It sounds huge. Mark's voice softened. Emma, you've already done something amazing here. You've built a community from the ground up. This is just the next step, and I believe you're the perfect person for it. Emma paused, letting his words sink in. She had come so far, and the fear that had held her back for so long was starting to fade. She had worked hard to get where she was, and now, this opportunity to make a real difference in the lives of others seemed like the perfect way to put everything she had learned into action. Okay, she said finally, her voice firm with resolve. I'm in. Let's do this. Mark's tone brightened. I knew you'd say that. I'll set up a meeting with the team, and we'll start planning right away. As Emma hung up the phone, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. The journey had not been easy, but every challenge had made her stronger. Now, she was ready for this next chapter, ready to take on a new challenge and help others find the same creative freedom she had discovered. The next few weeks were filled with meetings, planning sessions, and more organizing than Emma had ever imagined. She was balancing the growth of her studios while preparing for the community outreach project. There were moments when it felt like too much, when the weight of the responsibility threatened to overwhelm her. But through it all, Mark remained a steady presence, offering guidance and support when she needed it most. One evening, As they sat together in her office, going over the final details for the launch of the initiative, Mark looked at her with a thoughtful expression. "I'm really proud of you, Emma," he said quietly. "You've come so far, and you're about to change even more lives. Not just with this project, but with everything you're doing here." Emma smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "I couldn't have done any of it without you. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." Mark shook his head, a soft chuckle escaping his lips. "I just gave you the push you needed. You did the rest." Emma's heart swelled with gratitude. She had worked so hard, and now she was on the cusp of something even bigger. She was no longer just the girl who dreamed of opening a small art studio. She was building something that could change lives, that could provide opportunities for people who might never have had a chance to follow their passions. The next day, they launched the Community Outreach Initiative with a grand event at the new studio. Local schools, parents, and aspiring young artists all gathered to see what Emma and Mark had created. There were workshops, performances, and art displays, and Emma couldn't help but smile as she watched the excitement and enthusiasm in the room. It was a moment she would never forget, a moment where everything she had worked for came to fruition. As the event came to a close, Mark pulled Emma aside, his face serious. "There's one more thing I want to talk to you about," he said. Emma looked at him, a little puzzled. "What is it?" Mark hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I've been thinking about the future of these studios. You've done so much, Emma, and I think it's time for us to take the next step together." Emma furrowed her brow, unsure of where he was going. "What do you mean?" Mark smiled, his eyes twinkling. "I want to partner with you, officially. I believe in what you're doing, and I want to help make sure it continues to grow. So what do you say? Will you partner with me in this?" Emma's heart skipped a beat. This was it. The opportunity she had been waiting for, the chance to take her dream to a whole new level. She smiled, her voice full of conviction. "Yes, I'm in." Mark reached out to shake her hand, and in that moment, Emma knew her journey was far from over. This was just the beginning. The following months brought new challenges for Emma and Mark as they worked together to grow their shared vision. Their partnership was flourishing, but with growth came a new set of hurdles. Emma had always been passionate about her art and her community outreach projects, but now, as co-owners, she was also learning the complexities of managing a growing business. Despite the challenges, she found herself more motivated than ever. As they opened new spaces and expanded their programs, Emma couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. From a waitress to a studio owner, and now a partner in a thriving venture, life was moving so fast. It wasn't always easy, but it was everything she had dreamed of. However, as their projects grew, so did the pressure. The team expanded, new initiatives were launched, and the expectations kept rising. Emma found herself spending more time in meetings and less time with the artists and students she cared about so deeply. It was during one of these long days at the office, buried in paperwork, that she found herself staring at the calendar. She had barely seen Mark in the past week due to their growing responsibilities, and she missed the quiet conversations they used to have, when they could talk about their dreams and plans without the weight of a company on their shoulders. As if on cue, Mark walked into her office, his face serious yet soft. "We need to talk," he said, his tone more serious than usual. Emma stood up immediately, sensing something was wrong. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice steady but filled with concern. Mark hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I've been thinking a lot about how things are going, and I think we need to reassess our direction. Things are growing, but at a cost. We're spreading ourselves thin. I'm worried that we're losing sight of why we started all of this in the first place." Emma's heart sank as she listened to him. She knew he was right. The vision that had once felt so clear was now clouded by endless tasks and demands. They were both so focused on growth that they had neglected the core of what had made them successful in the first place, their passion for art and community. "I agree," Emma replied, her voice calm but resolute. "I think we need to step back and reconnect with our original vision. We started this because we wanted to make a difference, not just build an empire." Mark nodded, his expression softening. "Exactly, and I want to make sure we stay grounded. I don't want to lose what made this so special." They sat in silence for a moment, each of them processing the weight of the situation. Emma knew it was time for a change, but she wasn't sure how to make it happen. "What do you think we should do?" she asked finally, looking at Mark. "I think we need to take a step back and refocus. Mark said, his eyes meeting hers with determination. Let's start by scaling back on some of the things we've been doing. Let's give the artists we work with more space to grow, and let's prioritize quality over quantity. We don't need to keep expanding if we're losing our core values. Emma felt a sense of relief wash over her. She had been struggling with the idea of growing even further, but the truth was, she didn't want to lose the authenticity that had made everything work so far. She wanted to keep the focus on the people who truly mattered, the artists, the students, the community. You're right, she said, smiling for the first time that day. We've come so far, but we need to make sure we're doing this for the right reasons. They spent the next few weeks restructuring their plans. They focused more on creating a stronger sense of community in their studios and began hosting smaller, more intimate events that allowed the artists to connect with each other. They also implemented mentorship programs, pairing experienced artists with beginners to ensure that the studio remained a place of growth, learning, and support. The change was subtle at first, but it was exactly what Emma had hoped for. The energy in the studio shifted, and the artists began to feel more like a family than just a group of people working in the same space. As the months passed, Emma began to feel more balanced. She still worked long hours, but now she felt like she was part of something meaningful. Her relationship with Mark had grown even stronger as they found a new sense of purpose in their work together. They were no longer just business partners. They were collaborators, visionaries working toward a shared goal. One evening, as they were sitting together in the office after a long day, Mark turned to Emma with a thoughtful look on his face. "You know," he said, his voice quiet, "I never would have imagined that this is where we'd end up. From that first day we met, when you thought I was a janitor, to now, when we're building something bigger than we ever could have imagined." Emma smiled at him, feeling the weight of the journey they had been on. "It's been a crazy ride," she said, "but I wouldn't change a thing." Mark leaned back in his chair, his eyes reflecting the soft glow of the desk lamp. "Neither would I. You've built something incredible here, Emma, and I'm proud to have been a part of it." Emma felt a surge of pride at his words. They had come so far, and everything they had worked for was finally taking shape. But more than that, she had found something she hadn't expected, a purpose, a life that was hers to shape. She realized that no matter where the journey took her, she would always be grounded in the values that had gotten her here: creativity, community, and the belief that kindness could change the world. As Emma stood in the middle of the newly expanded art studio, her heart swelled with pride. The space had been transformed into something truly special, and it was more than just a place to create. It had become a community, a home for every artist who walked through its doors. The mentorship programs they had implemented were thriving, and the studio was filled with energy and life. She could hear the hum of conversation as artists discussed their work, the sound of paintbrushes against canvas, and the soft shuffle of feet moving across the floor. It was a constant reminder of why she had worked so hard to get here. But even with all the success, Emma knew that the road wasn't always going to be smooth. There were still challenges ahead, and as the studio continued to grow, so did the demands. One evening, as Emma was wrapping up for the day, Mark walked in. His usual confident stride was paired with a more serious expression. "Hey, Emma," he greeted her, his voice carrying the weight of an unspoken conversation. "Can we talk?" Emma set down the folder she had been working through and looked at him, sensing the shift in his demeanor. "Of course. What's on your mind?" "It's about the next step," Mark said, his voice steady but thoughtful. "We've done a lot to get here, but I think we need to consider where we're going from here. The studio is doing well, but the demand is growing faster than we can keep up with. It's time to make some bigger decisions." Emma nodded slowly, feeling the weight of his words. She had known this moment was coming. As much as she loved the work they were doing, she knew that with success came new challenges that would require tough decisions. "What are you thinking?" she asked, her voice calm but curious. Mark took a deep breath. "We're going to need more space. I think we should consider opening another location, but I don't want to jump into anything without really thinking it through. We need to make sure we're expanding with purpose, not just because we can." Emma thought about his words for a moment. She had always dreamed of growing the studio, of reaching more artists, but the thought of spreading themselves too thin was a valid concern. They had built something amazing, but how much more could they handle without losing sight of what made it special? "I agree," she said finally. We've worked hard to build this place into something meaningful. If we expand, it needs to be for the right reasons. Mark smiled, his expression softening. Exactly. It's not about just adding more locations. It's about continuing to create a space that's truly supportive of the artists who rely on us. And we don't want to sacrifice quality for quantity. Emma felt a sense of relief wash over her. Mark's vision for the future aligned with her own values. They weren't just in this to build a business. They were in it to build something that would make a lasting impact. They spent the next few weeks working on a strategy. Instead of rushing into a new location, they focused on strengthening the foundation of the existing studio. They fine-tuned their programs, ensured that the mentorship initiatives were sustainable, and created more opportunities for collaboration among the artists. Mark was right. Growth needed to be purposeful. And so, they worked to solidify the studio's reputation as a place where creativity and community thrived together. As time went on, Emma started to feel a sense of balance returning to her life. The constant rush had slowed, and with it, the pressure that had once weighed heavily on her shoulders began to lift. She was learning how to navigate the complexities of running a successful business while staying true to her mission. And through it all, Mark remained a steady presence by her side, offering guidance and encouragement when she needed it most. One evening, after another successful art show, Mark and Emma found themselves sitting together in the quiet studio, enjoying the calm after the storm. "You know," Mark said, his voice gentle, "I've been thinking a lot about how far we've come. When we first met, I never could have imagined that we'd be sitting here like this, running a studio together." Emma smiled, feeling the warmth of his words. "It's been a crazy ride," she said, her voice full of gratitude. "But I'm so glad we did this. I never would have believed that I could do it on my own. You've been a huge part of this journey." Mark nodded, his expression soft. "We've done this together, Emma. You've been the one to lead the way. I've just been here to support you." Emma's heart swelled with emotion. In many ways, she still felt like the girl who had worked as a waitress, unsure of herself and her future. But now, looking at the studio, at the artists who had found their own paths because of the space she had created, she realized how far she had come. It wasn't just about the business. It was about the impact they were making, the legacy they were building. "I couldn't have done it without you," Emma said quietly. "I think we've both made a difference in ways we never imagined." Mark smiled, his eyes full of pride. "And we're just getting started." Emma leaned back in her chair, gazing around the room. She had come a long way since that first meeting with Mark, and so had the studio. But now, for the first time, she felt like she had truly found her place in the world. She wasn't just an artist anymore. She was a leader, a mentor, and a creator of change. And as long as she had Mark by her side, she knew that together, they could keep growing and making an impact on the world around them. As Emma looked out of the studio's large windows, she felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. The city had changed in front of her eyes. What once seemed like a distant dream, owning her own art studio, making a difference in her community, was now her reality. And it hadn't just been her vision that had brought this all together. It had been the partnership with Mark, the shared belief that they could create something bigger than themselves. Together, they had turned an idea into a thriving hub for creativity, and more importantly, a place where young artists could find their voices. Emma thought back to the first day she had walked into the small cafe, unsure of where life would take her. She had no idea that one small act of kindness, offering help to a man she thought was just a janitor, would set her on a path that would change her life forever. The humility of that man, who had turned out to be Mark, had been the catalyst for everything. He had believed in her when she didn't believe in herself, and that belief had become the foundation for their success. As the years went on, their studio had grown. They opened new locations, expanded the mentorship programs, and reached more young artists who were hungry for the opportunity to create. What started as a small community outreach project had blossomed into something much bigger. Emma had learned so much along the way, about business, leadership, and, most importantly, about herself. But she had never lost sight of the reason she had started this journey: to give others the same opportunity she had, to help people find their passion and purpose, just as she had. The work wasn't always easy. There had been moments of doubt, sleepless nights, and hard decisions. But Emma never regretted a single one. She had found her purpose, and she had built something that would outlast her, something that would continue to help others for years to come. One evening, as Emma was walking through the studio after another busy day, she was stopped by one of the young artists who had been working there for some time. "Emma, can I talk to you for a minute?" the artist asked, his voice hesitant but full of gratitude. "Of course," Emma said, turning toward him. "What's on your mind?" The artist smiled, looking around at the studio filled with art. "I just wanted to say thank you," he said quietly. "When I first came here, I was lost. I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't think I had what it takes. But being here, surrounded by so many talented people, it made me believe in myself. And it's all because of what you've created here. You've given me a chance I never thought I would have. I don't know where I'd be without this place." Emma felt her throat tighten. She had heard similar words before, but hearing them still made her heart swell with pride. This was what it was all about, the impact she was making, the difference she was creating in the lives of others. She had built something that mattered. "Thank you," the artist said again. "For everything. You've really changed my life." Emma smiled, her heart full. "I'm just glad you're here," she said softly. "This place wouldn't be the same without you." As the artist walked away, Emma stood there for a moment, taking it all in. She had created a space where people could grow, where they could discover their own potential. It was everything she had ever wanted. And it was only the beginning. The following year, as Emma sat with Mark in the same office where they had made their first big decisions, she couldn't help but feel proud of how far they had come. "I think we've done it," she said, looking at Mark with a smile. "We've built something lasting. Something that's going to change lives for a long time." Mark smiled back at her, his eyes filled with warmth. "We've done it together," he said. "And it's been an incredible ride." Emma thought about the journey, the challenges, the breakthroughs, the sleepless nights, and the moments of doubt. But through it all, she had never given up. She had found a purpose that was bigger than herself, and with Mark's help, she had built a community that would last. "You know," Emma said, looking out the window at the city below, "I always thought my dream was about having a studio. But now I see it's about much more than that. It's about creating a place where people can come together, where they can find themselves. It's about giving people the chance to do what they love." Mark nodded in agreement. "You've created that, Emma. And that's something to be proud of." As they sat together, the weight of everything they had accomplished settled in. Emma knew that this was just the beginning. There were more artists to help, more communities to reach, and more dreams to turn into reality. But as she looked at Mark, she knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together. The journey that had started with a simple act of kindness was now a legacy that would continue to inspire and change lives for years to come. And Emma had no doubt that, together, they could accomplish anything. She had built more than just a business. She had built a family, a community, and a future, and that was worth everything.